Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful, for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey, David.
And welcome to everyone out there in oil country. All the, I like to say that we have the wisest fans in the world, Bruce, reading the Cult of Hockey, listening to the podcast. Certainly when it comes to hockey, they're the wisest fans in the world, man. There's a ton of really super knowledgeable people. Everywhere you go at Edmonton, I'm constantly impressed by just the incredible depth of hockey knowledge that so many people have in this city. So it's kind of an honor that many of them tune into this podcast and don't think that we're complete and utter idiots. Or maybe they do, and they're just polite.
Oh, most of them are polite. Every once in a while I read the comments on the YouTube section and get a bit of an eye-opener. I had one guy who said I looked like I ironed my shirt with a pineapple. I like that one.
Were you wearing the shirt you have on today?
Well, no, this is the Oilers, man. This is the first day of training camp. I'd like to say I know what's going on down there, but I think this is the first day they hit the ice. Yesterday was physicals and so on, but they're kind of keeping it private to this point. So they'll be opening it up to the public on the 11th, the last day.
You and I, in the eyes of the Oilers, are definitely the public. We're not part, like we can't get press passes. So just some things you're able to get them, are you not? Like the rookie things, kind of.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, usually they open these kind of things to the public, like the development camp. All I ever do is go and sit in the stand.
Oh, I see. Okay, you haven't had a press pass. You just go.
There. No. I'm the great unwashed, and that's fine. I mean, we report as outsiders, right? But if you report what the eye sees, your eye has to see it first. And if the event is closed to the public, then so it is. So people have been asking me if I'm going to be bringing updates on rookie camp, and the answer is as possible. I do intend on going to the game in Red Deer tomorrow night, and we'll report from there.
So they play the Flames rookies tomorrow night in Red Deer, and the next game is what? Is it Monday?
Tuesday in Calgary.
Tuesday in Calgary. All right. And so those will be two really, and they're both on the internet, I understand, right?
Yes. Oilers' website will be live streaming those games, and I think they're on YouTube and a couple other alternatives as well. So people can certainly see the boys in action when they start playing, pseudo games here, I guess real games, but they'll be taking not wasting much time. First game tomorrow.
All right, so the Oilers, Bruce, we're going to talk about rookie camp lineups. We'll get to that second. Let's talk about the first big thing that's happened, and I think it's actually pretty darn significant. And the Oilers have finally addressed their third line situation. They've signed 27-year-old center, longtime NHLer, Riley Sheahan. Is he related to Bobby Sheahan?
Nope, different spelling.
Okay.
It's Sheahan, and I've heard him pronounced Sheahan as opposed to Sheahan. Whereas Bobby Sheahan was Sheehan, and he was an absolute burner, man. One of the fastest skaters I've ever seen, Bobby Sheahan.
He was a weird hockey player, though.
Couldn't score, but he
was
could
so
skate.
Ineffective. He was flying all over the ice, doing everything he could. We had another guy. Then that role was inherited by Bobby Russell. Remember him? Blonde-haired Bobby Russell flying all over the ice a million miles an hour. Have we had a player like that in recent years? Who's the closest to the flying all over the ice rapidly? Kajula, maybe, but he was a bit more effective.
Well, he looked faster than he actually was, in my view.
Yeah, you're right.
He's one of those little guys that takes a lot of short strides and looks like he's burning around out there. And I'm not saying he wasn't fast. I just don't think he was like in the top few percent of pure speed.
A lot of people still mourn the loss of Drake Kajula, Bruce. I am not in that camp. He was such a weak defensive player.
I'm more in the trade, not the loss.
I hear you. The trade stunk to high heavens. That's a fair comment. All right, man. Riley Sheahan, you did the post. What do you think of the signing? Are you all? Is this a royal flush kind of move, or?
Well, it would be closer to one if he was a righty. But he's not. He's a lefty. But, he checks an awful lot of boxes, David. He is 27, And Ken Holland has shown a tremendous affinity for signing 26, 27-year-old mid-career guys to 1-year contracts around $1 million.
That's
They're
five
all,
thumbs up for that.
yeah, it's 6 thumbs up now because we're up to 6 such players, I think, that have been outside hires by Holland. So,
Exactly the right age to bring someone in, Bruce. Don't bring in these 32, 33-year-old guys, 31. Bring in guys who are still hungry, man.
and don't sign him to 7-year contracts. Yeah. Uh, anyway, he's 27, but you know what? He's been in the NHL. He had a year and a half playing down in the AHL in the Grand Rapids under the classic Detroit. Bring him along slowly. He's a former first round draft pick, 21 overall. They brought him along a year and a half in the AHL, and when they called him up midway in the 2013-14 season, he played every game for the rest of that season. And for the 5 full seasons since, he's played 79, minimum 79 games in every season. He's only missed 7 games in his career, 5.5 years. He's played 447 games, so he's got lots of experience. He's got decent size, 6'3", 214. Sorry, he was 24 overall, whatever difference that makes. Uh, but he scored over his career a point every 3 games. He's had a couple of 30-point seasons, including as recently as the year before last in Pittsburgh, when he had 32 points. He's sort of marginal as third line. Like his ice time, uh, he's like 268th in even strength ice time per game. And right, there's 279 top 9 forwards in the NHL by math, uh,
Okay.
and and he's 251st in points per 60. So he's like lower echelon third line player. But let's bear in mind now we're getting a third line player at no acquisition cost, $900,000 only salary, with all that recent experience. Like he is an NHLer as opposed to he was an NHLer who's trying to come back, like say Thomas Yurko, or he's a guy fighting back from some big problem that he's had, physical problem and so on. Nothing like that. The better thing then is even strength performance is on the penalty kill. He's a big time penalty killer. He's played 2.25 minutes of PK minutes. Uh, I think 15th in the league in shorthanded ice time for forwards over the last couple of years, and he's in the top 20% certainly in goals against per 60 on the penalty kill, which the other Oilers, all the guys that sort of slated to be penalty killers, which are the returning Oilers plus Marcus Granlund, have a poor track record of being killing penalties, but not successfully, giving up goals. So you want to get guys that are a little better than that.
Bruce,
And
I find that the hardest thing to rate by numbers, the
yeah,
single
it
hardest thing
is.
to rate by numbers, and this also includes our own scoring chance work where we're
Mm-hmm,
trying to figure it out. And I write about this in the post I just posted on the penalty
mm-hmm,
kill.
yeah,
The hardest thing to do by numbers is the penalty kill.
very.
It's such a team.
Yeah,
It's such a team chore, and it's
okay.
often dependent on a zone defense or a tricky defense, and and it's depends on timing. So someone might look like they're making a mistake, but actually they're not. It's the other guy who's timing, who was too aggressive or not aggressive enough, or they weren't
Mm-hmm,
moving as one, or one guy's off track, and man, and so it's really a case where if a player's been on a good PK, he's part of that, but he was just one cog on that wheel,
right.
and who knows if he's a really strong PK guy. So I just think this is one area that's totally fraught.
Mm-hmm.
All we can say for sure is that for the last 2 years, and so much comes down to goaltending, right?
Did you say
And
fraud or fraught?
fraught. It's fraught trying to use statistical analysis on individual
It's
players.
difficult. Now the
But
good.
what we can say, Bruce, is the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm,
the Oilers have been absolutely rancid.
they
And you can
stink.
make an argument for changing about almost every single player on that penalty kill because as a
Mm-hmm,
group, they
mm-hmm,
have not been getting it done. And
right.
I think one of the big issues and the reason, and you brought this up with the faceoffs, is Sheahan has been he's at 49% on faceoff draws over the last 3 years, and that's in the top 30 in the NHL. So this guy, he's you can send him out there. Leon Draisaitl's really good on faceoffs, 50% on the PK.
Yeah.
And but Draisaitl is often too tired, or he's just been on the ice. But every time we don't have to send out Nuge, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Nuge is a marginal. I'm going to say, and I know people don't want to hear that. Nuge is a marginal penalty killer. He's okay, maybe. I think he's mediocre at best. I think he's been a big part of a terrible penalty kill. Part of it is his rancid face-off work. He's almost the worst guy on face-offs in the penalty kill in the NHL. So the fact that they brought in Sheahan, a guy who can actually get this job done, Bruce, is to me hugely big positive for the team. It was a big hole, and they filled it. Good for Ken Holland.
He's the guy. All things being equal, the Oilers take a penalty. Over the boards goes Riley Sheahan to take the D zone face-off. And if he wins it, great, which as you say, he's got almost 50% rate on the penalty kill, which is good because the odd man advantage actually works to the advantage of the attacking team on the penalty kill. On the power play, they usually get 54, 55%.
Yeah.
Because they have more support from the wingers off the face-off. And anyway, so anything close to 50% is pretty good. But even the other 50% that he loses, I mean, he's a competent, accomplished penalty killer. As I said, the other teams in the last 2 years have scored 5.4 goals per 60 minutes that Sheahan's been on the ice killing penalties. And you might say, well, that's because he's on a successful unit. Well, he's actually been on 3 different teams, playing big minutes in all 3 and getting results that are in the upper echelon. So I would suggest that stat is actually maybe a little more real for him because it includes a mix of teammates than it might be for a guy that's just in the right system on the right team. So anyway,
Archibald and Granlund also have had, in terms of goals against and high danger chances against. I mean, I'm not saying I don't look at this stuff because with the penalty kill, you're trying to look at anything. Right. So they're both also significantly better in terms of not allowing high danger chances and goals against on the PK than anyone on the Oilers any forward on the Oilers has been. So Holland has taken some real steps here.
The other thing about Sheahan is that he has he's overall he's got a 53.4% in the faceoff dot the last 2 years, and that's like 1,700 draws. Like he's a full-time center. And that includes way more penalty kill face-offs, which are lower percentage, and very few on the power play, which of course are the reverse. And also, counting all situations, almost 900 face-off in defensive zone compared to 335 in the offensive zone, like almost 2.5 to 1. And yesterday, he specifically referenced that in his interview that he was the guy who was going to take some of the defensive zone load off of McDavid and Draisaitl. And to that, I said, hallelujah.
So he's probably going to anchor Bruce there. Tippett has already talked about having kind of a grind checking line, I if I'm not mistaken, and addressing like having players in specific roles. So it looks to me like if you have, it's still hard to know who's going to be on the second line on the wing. Could be Nygaard. Could be, it's just, anyway. But it looks to me like we're going to have a checking line. Yep. And I'm saying Sheahan's going to be the center on that checking line. Yep. And so, the wingers probably are going to be maybe Archibald and Granlund.
Maybe. Or maybe Archibald and Kyra.
Or maybe Archibald.
I think Archibald is in there.
So Cassian's not a great checker. He's an energy kind of player. But he's not a great checker. He's a terrible. I don't want to see him on the penalty kill anymore.
Yeah, well, that's where the upgrade happens. Is he get somebody out there who understands passing lanes and the like, and takes away those cross seam killer passes that lead to the guy with a 75% scoring chance, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. Archibald's probably going to be for sure the winger there if he doesn't get hurt, because I don't see Chiasson or Gagner in that role. But Cassian's unlikely, although possible. So Archibald, Sheahan, and as you say, it'll be Kara or Granlund. I guess Nygaard possibly. But looks like how does that sound as a checking line to you? I guess we don't know. We haven't seen.
It sounds
good, but it could stink. It sounds like an improvement. So did Brodziak and Reeder sound like an improvement, and they didn't turn out to be that, did they?
No,
I'm
not
blaming
really.
you, Bruce. I'm blaming you for that.
Yeah. I signed both those guys.
I know you did.
So anyway,
We
they've
were we
got
were we were both excited. We have to. I'll blame myself. We were like most Oiler fans. We were excited the day Brodziak and Tobias Rieder were signed. Like the vast majority of Oiler fans, we thought those were good moves, and we were excited. True or false? True.
oh, I'm always excited when they sign anyone, but that's me. David, we're losing you
Except
off
for
the right side of the screen a little
oh,
bit here, and I
right
know the
side.
new YouTube format splits us, so we wind up we don't have the full screen when we
I
speak
guess I
like we
should.
used
We
to.
should look at each other kind of this way, and then you should look at me, and then we'll be looking at each other.
Oh, okay.
Let's not do that. It's a really bad idea. Everyone was excited, Bruce, when those two players were signed, and genuinely
Yeah,
excited. They no, come
yeah,
on, they were.
yeah.
I could probably go back and look through your. I'm not going to do this. Your Twitter
Yo,
feed,
you can. I'm a fan of Kyle Brodziak, and I was happy to see him come back. But the fact remains, I'm still sour, bitter even, about the trade that sent him away to a divisional rival for nothing, just when he was coming into his own as a young player, young, cheap, good depth, bottom six, versatile player. And then they brought him back 9 years later when he was done.
you are the elephant of Oiler fans, Bruce. Is it the elephant who forgets nothing?
I don't. Yeah,
Isn't that the proverb, or the? Isn't there a
yeah,
proverb where the elephant
yeah. The
forgets
elephant
nothing?
has a long memory, and so do I.
Yeah, you
Well,
are the elephant,
I'm a little lighter, I think, but
Bruce the Elephant McCurdy.
I have an elephantine memory.
Okay. All right. So Sheehan. So what? Excuse me. What this does at center is now they have a. I mean, before we were counting on Gaetan Haas and Jujur Kara for third and fourth line center, and
Mm,
that was a nightmare in the making. Although I
yep,
was trying to tell myself that it was going to work out.
yep.
So now at least there's now it looks like there's and Colby Cade's in there somewhere. I don't think
Mm,
Cooper Rody's an NHL center, but so there's four guys, and there's Brad Malone, who I don't think is an NHL center
yeah,
at this point.
to me. Brad Malone just got bumped right off the realistic depth chart
And
with the
rightly so.
Sheahan zone, and Sheahan's a
Rightly
big upgrade on Brad Malone.
okay. So but it's looking a lot better. So
Mm,
this is probably like not because Sheahan's a good player, but I'm going to give this move a B plus. I'm going to
mhm.
bump it to a B plus just because it fills such an obvious need, and they didn't sign. You know, a lot of people would have been more excited if they signed Broussard, Bruce.
Yeah,
I'm not.
no,
And I say this not having watched closely either of these two players, so I don't. My opinion on it isn't very useful, honestly. But just going by the recent history of these players and their age, and I'm just tired of seeing the Oilers bring in these 31, 32, 33-year-old centers. We've seen it too much, and I don't think they help out.
Broussard wore out his welcome with three different NHL teams last year, and you could argue Sheahan did the same with at least one in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
But Broussard's contract was for significantly more. Was it 1.5? I'm trying to remember, but anyway, it was well in excess of that 1 million mark. Um, it, and I don't see him as. In fact, he complained about his role in Pittsburgh, playing behind Crosby and Malkin and sort of doing the dirty work as a 3C, and didn't suit him. Well,
How
what do you
dare
think
he?
you're going to do in Edmonton, right?
Well,
How do you think you're going to play in the top six in Edmonton as a center? Really?
this was Broussard complaining
This
about it.
was Broussard.
Well, he didn't sign here,
Before
of course.
before he signed anywhere, he was complaining about that and how the role didn't suit him and so on. Where Sheahan came in here and basically the first thing he said was, "I'm going to relieve some of the D zone and sort of do some of the dirty work so that the big boys can concentrate more on offense." And that's music to my ears. He's cheaper, he's younger, he's bigger, he's a established penalty killer, which Broussard never killed. I think his career, he's killed 90 minutes in penalties in his entire career. Like it just was the wrong fit. So I was relieved when he went elsewhere. I was frankly concerned the day that they were talking about signing him, because I thought this is the wrong player. They need in the bottom six, it's been such a disaster. Like decent guy penalty killers. like if your bottom six can't kill penalties, what the hell can they do?
Well, they should never have
They
gotten rid of.
sure can't score goals. I mean, they proved that well enough
Should have
last
kept their
year.
hands on Leonard Petrell, Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Leonard
Anyway,
Petrell
yeah.
was the best penalty killer the Oilers have had in the last decade. There you go.
Okay.
Riley
Was he?
Sheahan, he's going to drive people crazy from what I
Yeah.
remember of him because he's big and he looks slow and he's not physical. So he's the kind of Penner-esque player who is going to make a lot of people crazy. I think that's my predictions. And I don't know, maybe he'll make me
Well,
crazy too. But I suspect he might be surprisingly okay, surprisingly effective.
those kind of, yeah. I mean, the guys that do that D zone dirty work generally don't get a lot of accolades because they're not the ones that are putting the biscuit in the basket for the most part, and they're more likely to be, also in frame when the puck goes into our net. So even the good ones, they're often under siege just by nature of the role. So anyway, at least now they've got a guy who's an actual NHL player, uh, who's not 34 years old, and uh, is other than like if he was a righty, it would be even that little bit
I'm hoping
better. But
he's the Chris Russell of centers, not the Mark Fane of centers. Because I'm a little worried he might be the Mark Fane of centers.
oh,
Might be a little bit ineffectual out there to say
well,
that's.
is he going to be better than what we saw from Kyle Brodziak last year? Because
Oh yeah,
you could argue that that's the guy he's most directly replacing in
yeah,
the
but
role.
Brodziak can't play. Like apparently he was
Yeah,
apparently badly injured last year, which explains a
yeah,
lot, and unable
yeah.
to play
He,
this year.
he
So
had a back issue that's probably like it's certainly the rumors are bubbling under, and that it's a back thing, and that it did hamper him last year, and it might sideline him altogether this year. Which, if he goes on LTIR, well, that's In the case of Brodziak, he did sign a 2-year deal, not a 1 year. At his age, it was a bit of a stretch, but
yeah,
uh, at least it wasn't for any significant amount of coin. 1.15 million. Well, they can bury that on injured reserve without a big um, without a big um, repooling of resources. It's not like he's Andre Sekera and they're trying to figure out how in the hell to play the long-term injured reserve game.
so rookie camp, Bruce. Let's move on and
Mm-hmm.
talk about that.
Sure.
Really exciting. I'm just looking at your list of players that are going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been writing this series, and
Mm-hmm.
now we actually get to see him. I'm kind of pumped. I'm looking at the list here, and I'm really excited. I'm to see. It's 1 year later. All these guys, we saw them all last fall, and we can
Yeah.
remember Kirill Maximov not playing that well, and after playing really well the year previously, we get to see Bouchard, who had this great playoff last year, great season, great playoffs in Bakersfield. Samorukov, who took the OHL playoffs by storm.
Yeah.
Hebig, who was so good in Dev Camp, can he keep that up against some tougher competition? Benson, Lavoie, Marody, it's McLeod. It's just really exciting because Corey Prodman of the Athletic, who looks at all the farm systems, had the Oilers farm system ranked 9th overall. Scott Housen was on Oilers Now yesterday, saying he generally agreed with that assessment, although he didn't agree with Prodman on every player. He said Oilers are somewhere between 8 and 12 in terms of their farm system. That's Scott Housen, which was an interesting, for him to be so not boosterish in a way, not say we're
Uh-huh.
actually number 5, but I thought that
We're
was kind
number
of
one.
interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because we're between 8 and 12. That's a
Mm-hmm. It's a sober
very
assessment.
sober assessment from somebody. So good for Scott Housen. He gained credibility by not being over the top there. So
But
who are
last year
what?
they were 22, and this year 9, according to Prodman. And I agree with that assessment. They've taken a huge surge forward, almost by running in place. Uh, I think the theme to this camp
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
is how many of these guys are 1 year closer to being whatever it is they're going to be. And that starts with the guys who aren't here, who were at last year's camp: Caleb Jones, Ethan Bear, William Lagesson, Joe Gambardella, guys who because they've been pros now for a couple of years, they no longer qualify for this camp. And I think there's a games played threshold that they probably all exceeded last year in the AHL. So those guys aren't here, but they're all still prospects in the organization. So that's what's running underneath. And what's running up on the surface is of the 23 guys that are here in a much more streamlined camp, there's 4 training camp invites, uh, 4 AHL only contracts. So you can basically write all those guys off. You know that they're going to be gone. They're either going to be in AHL camp or they're going to be back with their junior teams. But of the 15 guys who are here who are on the NHL stream, there is one new player, and that is Raphael Lavoie, who was picked in the second round this year. He's the only one of the 15 that isn't already under contract. So these are serious guys that they hold hopes for, at least in most cases. And the other 14 guys, all 14 of them were in camp here last year. And so there's not only some continuity there, but they're all closer. Evan Bouchard is a year closer. Tyler Benson is a year closer. And you can go down that list with Yamamoto and Marody, guys that now have a year of pro under their belt, who are knocking on the door a little more than they were a year ago. And in many of the cases, that was a good year. They had a strong year, be it in Bakersfield or in the case of Samorkov in Major Junior, where he really took a huge step forward. And there's just a lot more reason, not only for hope of future help, but that help is at hand. That you can't just point at one guy and say, well, if that guy doesn't make it, we're toast, right? If Toby Reeder scored 10 goals. Anyway, if there's a bunch of guys, and you got to think that one or two of them is going to bubble up.
So that's what I'm looking for here, Bruce. That's what if I'm most excited about anything in this camp, it's not necessarily to see Maximov or McLeod or Samorukov, because I am excited to see those guys, but I'm really, really going to be focusing on Benson, Bouchard, and Marody. Like, these are the guys out of this camp who have a chance to make the Edmonton Oilers. And the Oilers, Marody and Benson especially, this is a huge moment of opportunity for them.
Right.
They both had brilliant rookie seasons in the AHL. The Oilers are desperate for wingers who can attack. They can both attack. So this is their chance. This is a big moment for these two guys. And hopefully they've addressed that. I hear great reports about Benson. Marody is such a fine hockey player. He's just really great with the puck, so smart with the puck. And it'd be interesting to see if he can figure out a way to become a useful NHL player. And if
you think translate those skills on the wing, for Marody?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. He's a right shot guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just see him. I see him as a winger, and he's and a good winger. And both Marody and Benson, I think, have a chance because they combine so well with other players, pass the puck so well with other players. And when you have players like McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent-Hopkins to a certain extent, they're just looking for players who are smart enough and skilled enough to pass the puck well with them. Hey, I just want to add one thing. I'm going to go off topic here for a second. I read an interview yesterday with Nugent-Hopkins on Puljujarvi, and it was the most heartening thing. He actually sounded like he gave a crap about the player, and was saying, he just talked about the confidence issues and how Puljujarvi's got a lot of potential. He was close and seemed to get down on himself. It just struck me as being real leadership. And I'm not trying to criticize anyone else for not going out on a limb and supporting Draisaitl, or supporting Puljujarvi. But it was nice to see Nugent-Hopkins support Puljujarvi in this way, and to indicate that he'd certainly be open to him coming back to the team and hoping for the best for this player. So I like that, Bruce. Did you see that interview?
I read comments from the interview, and you're right. The give a crap level was a little bit different. Draisaitl, I understood where he was coming from. Like, the guy bailed on the team, and let's move on, But I think Nuge is, he's a little more sympathetic, a little more maybe just a little bit more mature of a person making the comments. And then, I mean, Nuge is one of those guys in the leadership group, is wearing the letters on the team, and he chose his word carefully. And I mean, he's always one of those guys who's not going to say anything controversial. Anyway, he's been very, very good at towing the verbal line throughout in terms of being the hockey player with the boring quotes. Not totally uninteresting, but he's not ever going to go out and say anything outrageous. Um, I
Well, none
don't
of
think
them
he
are
did
really,
here.
and I don't have a problem with really Dreisaitl's, his comments and or McDavid's comments. I think they were both asked what they thought, and I was fine with what they said. Like, I can understand people not being happy with a teammate
Yeah.
who doesn't want to be
Or
there. I get that too. But
yep.
it was nice to hear Nugent-Hopkins be supportive of the player. And again, I guess I'm saying this as an Oiler fan who's really hopeful that in a year or 2 years or 3 years, however long it takes, Puljujarvi gets his game together, gets healthy, gets confident, and is willing to come back to the Oilers. Because I just think this could be a huge mistake, Bruce, if they trade him for
Oh,
nothing, or they write him off. Like, no, this should be like, thank goodness this happened. This is a great opportunity to reset, to get this guy the experience he needs, and to go from there. So
well, I hope he hears comments like those coming from Nugent Hopkins, and that he doesn't just take in that everything's negative. And
yeah,
and you watch highlights as are coming in over the internet of JP scoring goals over in the Champions League of Europe. But I don't care what league it is. You see the guy with that huge wingspan and the loping stride and the hands, and you go, holy man, that's an NHL talent. Could we ever use a guy like that if he ever got his crap together?
yeah.
And he just struggled to do that on a consistent basis here in Edmonton. It's I mean, the talent is undeniable, and it's just a matter of when can he do that. And the second best scenario is he improves his trade value, and because right now he's kind of at the bottom floor of what he could probably get in return also. So
Yeah, he'd
good
have to
luck.
have
I
a
hope he
pretty
scores 50. I
amazing.
hope he
He'd have
scores
to have a
50.
pretty amazing season to improve his trade value, though, Bruce.
I hope he scores 50 in the league. All this talk about Edmonton fans and media are hoping for him to fail miserably over there. Well, not me.
Who's
I hope
hoping
he
that? I have
scores
never. I'm not
That's
hearing anyone say that.
I
Like, I'm
am.
hearing lots of negative comments about Puljujarvi.
Mhm.
People are mad and they're fed up with him and they don't want him back on the Oilers. I hear that a lot, but I'm not hearing. I hope he fails. Are you hearing that?
I'm hearing that being ascribed to Edmonton fans by
But are
outsiders.
you hearing anyone from Edmonton say that? No. So I'm hearing people from Edmonton, and we're in touch with the Oiler fans is anyone. And I'm not seeing anyone say that. That's just rubbish if people are ascribing that to Oiler fans. What they're saying is, I'm sick of
And
Puljujarvi on
media.
the
The
Oilers.
specific comment I read was Oilers media were hoping he falls on his face, but
Oh, I
I
don't know
don't.
about
I don't
that.
see it. I
I
don't
have
see
I
it.
if you can show me one tweet from somebody, maybe there's one fan, but none of the regular people who comment, none of our great cult of hockey readers and listeners say that. I'm pretty sure. Okay, Bruce, maybe we should leave it there. We're getting a little length. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Um, well, just the one final thing about rookie camp is that, and in general, about what we've been talking about, is that Ken Holland has done a strong enough job layering the bottom six and bottom eight, or however many you want to count on the roster, that there is time. These guys, there's cover for these guys to learn their trade. And if they do wind up going back to the AHL, it's not a matter of, well, geez, you know, he didn't make the team now, and that's really going to hurt us. It's a matter, well, we got other guys, and we got layers of other guys, experienced European players, experienced AHL players, experienced NHL players that were signed as free agents over the summer. And there's uh, a critical mass of sort of, I guess, lower echelon, but NHL caliber players or guys knocking on the door that it will allow these guys to develop in their own time. And sure, I mean, if Tyler Benson or Cooper Marody comes into training camp and starts filling the net, and looks like they're ready, then great. They're probably better than these guys in the long run. Uh, but the timing on it now is going to be a little bit more relaxed in terms of, well, let's send them down for a couple more months and give them a bit more time, and in the meantime, we actually have a guy or several guys that can cover off that role. And I do think the collection of bottom sixers, which has been a perennial problem for this team. Geez, I remember writing an article when Craig McTavish took over from Steve Tambolini, where the headline was, "Should Craig McTavish deep six the bottom six?" and it
Oh,
was,
again.
and it was ever thus, right? Every time the new GM takes over, I thought, well, look at this mess he's got at the bottom six, and I think Holland has addressed that. And I mean, well, the proof will be in the pudding when they start playing the games, obviously.
Yeah.
But the collection of guys, I no longer see Edmonton's bottom six as being a glaring weakness. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go out and outscore other teams. I'm just saying they're probably not going to get killed to the degree that they have in, especially last year.
I think one of Benson, Marody, or Yamamoto will make the team.
Mm-hmm.
Just not sure which of the three will do it. Could be any of them.
Least likely Yamamoto, just because of his wrist issue, and he just needs a stretch of healthy play and good play, I think. But they're all, like I say, the whole bunch of them is closer in 2019 than they were in 2018, and we're going to see some movement. We're going to see some real hard competition for jobs at training camp. That part's going to be real good.
Alrighty, Bruce. Thanks for talking today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.